Your attention, please. If you're leaving the theater, please hang your speaker on the speaker stand before starting your car. Don't take chances on accidents which may damage your car. If you accidentally tear off your speaker, please don't be frightened. Simply turn it in. There is no charge for reinstalling speakers.
He steered a course toward the light, but it was a campfire like this one. The ship crashed against the rocks. The hull sheared in two. The mast snapped like a twig, and the wreckage sank with all the men aboard. At the bottom of the sea lay the Elizabeth Dane with her crew, their lungs filled with salt water, their eyes open and staring into the darkness.
A horror film without gore is usually a death sentence. However, there are exceptions. The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is known as one of the most vicious and disturbing movies of all time. There's not much gore in that film. The use of visuals and sound in place of visceral gore gave the film a more real-life documentary feel to it. It was like witnessing actual murder on screen, where Tobe Hooper used that very technique to make you question what's real and what's not. John Carpenter took this format to a whole nother level. The Fog is arguably the scariest film without a drop of blood, possibly the greatest use of sound design in a horror film. A ghost story that will put the fear into you. It's really a classic revenge tale underneath. The start of this film sets the eerie tone just right. The story of what happened to the crew of the Elizabeth Dane, brilliantly told by the great John Houseman. You could just close your eyes and listen to this guy's dialogue and you will be creeped out. It's haunting. It's really the perfect way to start this film. Who doesn't like a good campfire story? Come on. This film is pure Carpenter. Jamie Lee Curtis returns as hitchhiker Elizabeth Solly. The Scream Queen hits the ride with another Carpenter favorite, Tom Atkins as Nick Castle. No, not that one. That one. The two drink and drive before the car windows suddenly shatter. In fact, it's just past midnight and all types of shit is happening throughout the town. Father Malone, played by the legendary Hal Holbrook, discovers a book tucked away within the walls of his church. The sudden crack in the wall scares the fuck out of the poor bastard. John Carpenter also cameos in the scene. Original Scream Queen Janet Leigh is also cast in this movie as Kathy Williams, the rough mayor of Spivey Point. It's a Carpenter film, so Nancy Loomis and Charles Cyphers also make appearances. Broken glass, car alarms, tremors, the town pretty much goes apeshit for 6 minutes. Meanwhile, the film's actual star is Stevie Wayne, played by the magnificent Adrienne Barbeau. Stevie makes her living spinning records for Spivey Point out of the old lighthouse. From here, we are introduced to the fog. The glowing nature of this particular fog captures the attention of Stevie Wayne. The fog is also moving rather strangely and in a very unpredictable manner. Meanwhile, out in the ocean, the crew of the Seagrass finds themselves in a very unfortunate situation. They find themselves in the way of the fucking fog. These guys are completely sloshed out of their minds. The fog envelops the seagrass completely. The crew, they're quickly surrounded. These guys have been on a bender all night. So imagine trying to sober up as your ship is being boarded by this unseen presence. This unknown force. Al, Tommy, and Dick Baxter don't have a fucking clue what's going on. Now this is where the film gives us our first look at Blake and his waterlogged crew members. The violence that Carpenter puts on film is fucking magical. The non-use of blood led to the emphasis placed on the sound, and holy shit does it work. The sound of knives impaling their victims are only heightened by the loss of music. The lack of visuals on the villains make them much more scarier as they weave in and out of the fog. The sound design during this scene was chilling. Whether it's the whispers or the sound of meat hooks, John Carpenter proves you don't need visceral gore to invoke anxiety upon his audience.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
The one thing this movie does so well is telling ghost stories within a ghost story. After getting scared shitless by Nick and a faulty locker, Elizabeth finds Dick Baxter. That scene was hella crazy. On the outside, all is well with the seagrass. But as Nick points out, on the inside, it appears she's been underwater for a very, very long time. It don't make sense. This fog is wild, man. It's fucking crazy. After coming to the conclusion that Dick Baxter has technically been underwater for months, not really, the lifeless corpse of Dick Baxter comes back to life. This screams Halloween right here. It's simple, yet effective, and it gives the film a much needed slasher vibe. Carpenter alumni Darwin Jostin makes an appearance as Dr. Fives.
Anybody got a smoke?
As night falls and the town readies for their 100th year anniversary, the fog returns. Stevie begins witnessing strange occurrences after her son brings home a mysterious plank with the name Dane across the wood. Stevie Wayne, if I haven't mentioned it yet, is a great character. Now Stevie, she's worried about the fog, and she warns her fellow weatherman Dan that the fog is drawing close upon him. I mean, Stevie practically tells Dan, don't open the door. And what does Dan do? This fucking guy.
Someone's at the front door, sweetheart, playing a stupid joke. And whoever it is, they ain't gonna like finding me home.
Tough guy Dan just got bodied. Now a nervous wreck, Stevie calls home to check up on her son. However, that motherfucker, the fog, it cuts the power lines, making sure nobody has direct communication within each other amongst the town. Of course, this ain't stopping Stevie Wayne. She uses the airwaves to communicate. She's practically yelling into the microphone for someone to go to her house, rescue her son. I mean, you can hear the panic in her voice. What a performance. Now the fog, it rolls into town. The score is fucking fantastic here. It's panic inducing. One thing that Carpenter does is score his own films, so he knows exactly the kind of tone he's looking for and how he's going to achieve it. Fucking masterful. Back home, the fog takes the elderly babysitter Miss Colbert into the darkness, as the sound of stabbing and muffled gurgling is all that can be heard. Now, young Andy, Stevie's son, he's locked in his room. The ghouls hacking and tearing the young boy's door apart, right before Nick breaks the window and rescues Andy. The fucking man. Nick and Elizabeth had heard Stevie's cry for help over the radio and got to Andy just in time. Dan, he wasn't as lucky, unfortunately. As the fog tears through the town, Nick, Elizabeth, and Andy converge with Kathy and Sandy at Father Malone's church. The old priest, he has it all figured out. Father Malone knows Blake and his boys are after that ass. Meanwhile, back at the lighthouse, the ghostly undead make their way inside. Now Stevie doesn't make it easy for him. She makes it all the way to the top of the lighthouse to defend against the rotting corpse. Now here, we get a great shot of Warren Face. Rob Bottin's a fucking genius. This guy's did The Howling. This guy's done The Thing. The film needed just a little glimpse of what's lurking within the fog. gnarly shit. In fact, the first cut of this film was trash. It sucked. Carpenter and his friends went back and deconstructed the film from the ground up. You see, the filmmakers, they knew it didn't work. Carpenter felt it wasn't scary enough. Carpenter went back in and added several scenes to add to the atmosphere of the film. Most of the violence that you see on film was added during the reshoots. The original version just wasn't scary. Just like Halloween, they added the music to that film to elevate it to the status that it is today. In this film, what John Carpenter did, he did add violence to this film, but in a way that we haven't really seen before or appreciated. Carpenter pretty much went back and fixed his own film. He didn't give up. The only problem was the film was released adjacent to scanners. Scanners! In that film, Cronenberg did not hold back on the gore. Audiences just didn't want to give The Fog a chance. Wasn't gory enough for them. Wasn't violent enough for them. What fucking movie were they watching? The next Halloween, sadly, this was not. Still, the film only cost a few million to make and it did make a profit. It just didn't get elevated to the heights that Halloween did. In the end, Blake got his gold back and Father Malone, he lost his head. I miss films like this. It took a chance on proving what you don't see is oftentimes scarier than what you can. Only Carpenter can pull this off at this level. It just felt so real. Now, The Fog is a ghost story done right. What the film lacks in actual gore on screen is more than made up for with the sound design. I mean, when a meat hook just stabs into a human flesh, just the sound of the meat just slicing, cracking into the bone itself, it's nothing quite like it. And you hear the actors playing off of that violence in a way where it just, you feel for these characters. I mean, no fucking CGI is needed whatsoever. So when you feel the air around you just turn into this chill, look into the darkness across the water. Look for The Fog. Thank you for watching Horror Fiend Drive-In Theater. Please leave a like on the way out and come back very soon. I am your boy Ricky Grimes. This is Horror Fiend TV. Stay scared.